will be on Sirius 161, XM 206, and online at horseracingradio.net, talking to trainers and jockeys and owners, a lot of people associated with horses running in this year's Kentucky Derby or Kentucky Oaks.
That's awesome. Good for you. I'm very jealous. Right below Bobby Newman is a longtime football writer, Mike Wilkening. That's where I first crossed paths with Mike rather, when he was covering the NFL. But I see him now all the time on Twitter talking horse racing. And I reached out to Mike. I said, I haven't talked to you on the radio for a long time. Would you be interested in doing this? And he got right back to me. So good to see you, Mike. How you been?
And great seeing you, and a pleasure to be here with Bobby and Jeff today. Awesome stuff. What a great race this is shaping up to be. Looking forward to diving in on it.
Absolutely. I'm going to try and beat the favorite as I always do. And then in the bottom right, that's Jeff Holdorf of Yacht Prairie Meadows. There's seldom a day that goes by during the live meet unless Iowa State football actually collides with the live racing card. Jeff will be there in his spot with his group watching horses. Good to see you, Jeff Holdorf. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ken. Great to see you. We've done different dabbles in the radio and broadcasting business over the last 30 years, so this is a lot of fun to do this today with this great group.
Yeah, that's for sure. No doubt about it. Well, I thought, guys, we just get start at the top and go through it. We'll start with the horse on the rail and get through all 20, a comment or so on all of them. Obviously, there's going to be some horses that we'll linger, spend more time on, but let's get to it. Bobby, I'll start with you. Renegade draws the rail. He's the morning line favorite, 4-1. Irad Ortiz had a choice to make. He did decide to stick with Rapoli and Pletcher. Now, normally, if this was just an allowance race at Gulfstream or at Keeneland, I could understand it. But when it comes to the Derby, Bobby, what's your experience here with these big-name riders? I get relationships go a long way, but do you think Irad Ortiz was pressured or felt pressure from Pletcher and from Rapoli to stick with Renegade, or was this legitimately his choice?
I think it's legitimately his choice. I don't think that he's worried about losing mounts in those barns. I mean, he's so much better than almost any other rider out there right now. He had his choice of 4 horses in here, and 3 of them were the favorites: Renegade, Commandment, and Further Ado. He also could have ridden Full Effort. He chose Renegade over Commandment when they ran on the same day the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby took place. Renegade looked awesome that day. I think he made the right choice. I don't know if he would have chosen Renegade if he knew that he was going to get the 1 hole in the Kentucky Derby, though. That's going to be the big question mark.
Absolutely. Mike, when it comes to the 1 post position, did you like Renegade prior to the post draw, and where are you now on Renegade?
I think he was a strong contender before the post draw. I think he's a strong contender after it. I think if you go way back to when this horse is maiden race, you go back and look, beaten 18 lengths, running third. Well, that was the day that It's Our Time, who was a very, very stylish maiden winner that day, just freaked. Now, never quite was the same after that, but can be forgiven. But the opening fractional, I think, is the key there. He was 22-4 to the first quarter there. So he's got a little bit of more speed than he's shown. This might be a case where Irad's got to go a little bit earlier on him to get some position, but I think the horse is capable of doing it. It's clear, though, he likes to take his time to sort of get into stride, but I think this is a case where that long run into the first turn, I think he's going to get good position. I don't think he wants to be stuck exactly to the rail. I think he probably wants kind of that maybe 2 wide trip or thereabouts. He's got to take some dirt. He's done that previously. I tend to think this isn't the worst thing in the world for Renegade. And again, I think he's got a little bit more tactical speed than he's shown.
Yeah, and the horse to his right in the 2-hole, Elbus, has none, so he should be able to work out a trip. And as Bobby said, I for my money, Irad Ortiz is the best rider currently playing his trade. Holder, you on Renegade?
I am not necessarily. I like the horse. I don't love the horse. I think the horse has a lot of talent. I don't know that I'm convinced that the path through Arkansas had the toughest path this year. I mean, he beat Silent Tactic. He beat Litmus Test in the Arkansas Derby. I actually liked his win better in the Sam F. Davis, beating Wayne's Law and the Puma, but I'm still not convinced that the Arkansas path was the most difficult trail that there was. I think we've all seen how difficult the Florida trick is, and I always think coming through the Rubia Turfway, the horses tend to transfer fairly well from there. No works at Churchill. He was doing all his works at Palm Beach Downs. It's been 40 years since a horse out of the one holes won the Kentucky Derby, since Ferdinand back in '84. I know they've made the gate change back in 2020, where, as you well know, for the many times that you've seen it, Ken, how the used to be the horses coming out of the one hole ran right into the rail coming out of the gate, and that change back in 2020 has made a difference. Yet, history still tells me nobody's had any success out of the one hole in 40 years, and I think this is such a wide open field. I'm not willing to take Renegade at too short a price.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to bet the favorite. I actually stood in the gate back when it was the two gate system, and looked out of the one hole, stood in the one post position, and you run straight into the rail. But those things have changed. Let's go to Elbus, Bobby. New York preps. The Wood Memorial. Wood Memorial's been a long time since they produced a winners, if memory serves. Do you give Elbus a chance, Bobby?
No, I don't give Albus a chance. I think all the horses that figured in the Wood Memorial this year were speed types, and they all faded into oblivion, and just closers that were big bombers kind of inherited that, inhaled them down the stretch. Albus was impressive. He's a nice horse. I don't think he's this kind of horse. And his regular rider, Jaime Torres, took off to ride the other Riley Mott horse, Intrepido, instead.
What about you, Mike? You can have Elbus on a ticket?
In the deep exotics, maybe if it did come up wet, this horse is Bernardini on the dance side, he could factor. I totally agree with Bobby. I think this is maybe a level too high for him, but I do think that this is a horse that as we go on through the year, we could very easily see him kind of going on and being competitive in some of the other derbies that come up. So a little too much for him today, not without a chance to clunk up to maybe get a check if it completely collapses, but I think it's a bridge too far.
Yeah, if it was the Iowa Derby, that'd be one thing, but this is a Kentucky Derby. I'm throwing him out. Holt, are you going to use him?
Not at all. Nice story with the Pin Oak Stud Farm that getting two horses into the Derby, but I think Christian Torrey is already saying I'd rather ride the other mount. I think says a lot about it. Wood Memorial victors have had very little success here in quite a few years. I'm not willing to play anything coming out of the Wood. Albus is a complete toss for me.
Intrepido worked on Sunday morning, worked 45 for a half a mile. Jeff Mullins, the trainer, was absolutely apoplectic after he found out how quick that this horse worked. I wasn't going to use him prior to this. I'm definitely not going to now, Bobby.
Yeah, I wasn't going to use him anyway. And the funny thing is that Jeff Mullins basically said after the Santa Anita Derby that they were going to take some time off and regroup. And it's the owners who forced the trainer's hand and said, if we have enough points to be in the Derby, we're running in the Derby. So now Jeff Mullins is in a tough spot where he can't just flat out say, well, I don't want to run them, but they want to run them. But that's kind of what's happened right here. I don't expect much from Intrepido.
Derby fever won't be the last owner that catches it. Mike, Intrepido for you?
No, but it clearly is feeling good. Even the last drill at Santa Anita, was second out of 97. I mean, he's clearly probably maybe rounding back to what might be his best, but that I still wouldn't think would be enough to have him to be factor here today. And, as echoed, I think kind of a tough spot for Jeff Mullins to be in here.
Drawing a line through him, Jeff?
I am as well. Hector Barrios in for his first ever Derby mount. One quick little fun fact. There's 20 jockeys in this race. 12 of the jockeys in this race have started in the Derby 6 times or more. 8 jocks in this race. This will be their first ever Derby mount. So talk about an experience difference. A lot of those first-time jocks, it's a whole new ball game here at the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to draw a line through a lot of the first-time jocks.
Yeah, not a bad method. Yeah, let's move on to Litmus test. Bob Baffert, one of his two. Baffert, when you see him in the Derby, he's usually got a short price. That's not the case with Litmus test, Bobby.
Yeah, he needed a few defections to get in off the also eligibles list. Drew in with Chip Honcho deciding not to go into the race just yesterday. And Litmus test getting the blinkers back on. I don't really think he's a win threat, but I do think he's a pace factor.
Okay. Are you going to use him, Mike?
I'm not going to. I think he's overmatched here. I think probably the most likely leader in terms of intent, and also with the blinkers. And again, you go way back to his maiden breaking score. He's a horse that can go 21 and change the first quarter, and with Garcia up, it's pretty clear what the mode of operation is going to be. But I don't think he's going to be there in the end. So yeah, I won't be using him.
Took the blinkers off for the Arkansas Derby. They're back on for the Kentucky Derby. Oldie, you like Litmus test 50-1, Jeff?
I do not. It's a big price for those that like a big price, but I think Martin Garcia getting back up for Bob Baffert. He's worked for Baffert for a long time, and you go all the way back to 2015. He was kind of being the good soldier in 2015, sending Dortmund as fast as he could. I kind of look for the same thing here with Litmus test. I think he's going to try to see how fast he can go with Litmus test. Set up some wicked fractions, and hope that maybe Juan Hernandez on Potente can maybe close into it a little bit. So I think he's going to be the good Baffert soldier, as Martin Garcia has been for much of his career.
Well, it sounds like all the horses we're interested in, we are on the outside or toward the outside, because here comes another long shot in Right to Party. If we don't like Elbus, Right to Party couldn't beat Elbus last time out, Bobby Noon.
Now, he's another one that benefited from the fast pace early on in the wood, and all the contenders really just dying out of it and fading into oblivion. I don't think Right to Party is a contender in the Kentucky Derby. I think he'll be far back early and probably pass some tired horses late, but not nearly good enough to be a contender.
Contender for you, Mike?
I couldn't say it any better than Bobby. I completely agree. I think he's quite a bit overmatched here today. Again, another thing too, again, if it did come up wet, he's pretty well bred for it. But again, he at the very best, he's clunking up to get a piece or two at the best. Yeah.
So if the track's off, then maybe in the bottom of some tickets. How do you see Right to Party, Jeff?
Fun story getting the 20-year-old Chris Elliott to get his first ever start at the Derby. Stuart Elliott's 20-year-old son. Yeah, placed well at the Wood Memorial. Again, first-time jocks at the Kentucky Derby are certainly a downside for me, and anything coming out of the Wood historically has been bad as well. We'll have a nice closer style, but boy, hang on for dear life, because there's going to be a lot of horses wanting to close, and I don't think this is one of your preeminent closer, but this is a horse that should like the longer distances. Is about the only saving grace you can put on Right to Party.
All right, here comes Commandment. Going to get a lot of attention. Irad Ortiz took off after winning the Fountain of Youth. Flavian Pratt jumped aboard, won the Florida Derby. He's going to take off. It's Luis Saez on the Brad Cox trainee Commandment, Bobby.
Oh, Pratt did not have a choice on this one. He had committed to emerging market after the Louisiana Derby win, so I don't think he took off Commandment. He may have chosen Commandment if he had the choice. Commandment's obviously a very nice horse, and he keeps winning these close races, so he's battle-tested, beating horses like the Puma and Chief Wallabe. I don't really have anything negative to say about Commandment. He's a horse that runs well every time he goes to the racetrack. He's probably going to be about 7-1.
Yeah. Mike, you using him?
I'm certainly going to use him. Wouldn't surprise me if he won. A very, very nice horse. I do think he might be a little bit further back than he's been, kind of given his fractionals to this point. And there's nothing to say that he won't be able to go and sort of come get the horses in front of him, but he might be 8, 9, 10, as opposed to, he's typically been sitting 4th or 5th in smaller fields. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, drawing the 6 hole, he's probably going to be able to save a little bit of ground, you would think, 2 or 3 wide around the turn. So he'll put in his run. And again, I think he's, if you like a long shot or something like that, he's certainly a must use, as a saver. He's certainly going to run his race, I would think.
How about you, Jeff?
He'll come flying. 3rd different jock in 3 races. Irad in the Fountain of Youth, Pratt in the Florida Derby, and now Luis Saez picks up the Derby mount. Yeah, there's very hard to shoot too many holes in this horse into mischief that's going to come running. The one thing I notice about this race, though, is I look through all 20 horses, you're going to have about 8 horses that are going to come running. So it's going to be interesting to see how these 8 horses are going to try to navigate their path to the front, and who's going to get that kind of swervy Mage type close as Mage did back in 23 and to victory. And there's going to be a lot of horses. If you get a real fast, hot tempo, this will be one of the horses, but who's going to get that trip to win the roses at the end of the day?
Dan and Bourbon, never been beaten, comes over from Japan. Japanese connections have certainly made an impact over the last few years. Certainly at the Breeders' Cup, we'll see if they're able to cut in here. I'm a sucker for these horses, Bobby. I will be using Dan and Bourbon. Am I nuts?
Oh, I think at 20 to 1 on the morning line, it'd be hard to talk you off of it. I don't really know much about this horse. I know he hasn't gotten the publicity that Forever Young got before he tried the Derby a few years ago. And he was supposed to be the greatest Japanese horse to come over here, maybe forever. And he's obviously turned out to be a very, very good horse. This horse has been drubbing horses in Japan, but we haven't heard all that much about him. So I really don't know if you say yay or nay. If he was 4 to 1, I'd probably be betting against him, but he's 20 to 1 on the morning line. Why not use him?
Yeah, I'm going to. Don't know what he's beaten, Mike. That's my only knock against him, I guess, question. I'm going to use him. Are you, Mike?
I'll probably use him defensively. I think that the thing that stands out to me in watching his replays is he's someone that he's getting kind of these 2-3 wide trips and is, stock pounce go. And I'm not sure, again, what he's beating sort of on behind him. He looks great while doing it. Looks to be a little bit of a grinder to me. I just don't know, again, what type of trip he's going to get relative to what he's gotten before. It's almost a certainty that he's going to be farther back than he's been, unless he, it's pedal to the metal a little bit more out of the gate for him. So he might be, again, someone that is 11th, 12th, something like that. And if he's wider than he's been, he's going to have to use more energy. He's going to have to come, and beat a far better group of horses than he has. So again, there's sort of the mystery factor. He's done nothing wrong, well bred, but I think there are a couple hurdles in front of him to get the money here.
Well, he's been running on clockwise tracks too, so that's going to be something new he's going to have to overcome. Do you like him, Jeff?
Certainly have to respect the breeding. Maxfield Street Sense on the sire side, dam sides has Tappet in it. Certainly have to like the breeding. Again, I think Bobby and Mike illustrated it perfectly. You have no idea what the horse is beaten. Horse did set a stakes record and Nakayama on a muddy track in that stakes race. A great stalk and pounce type horse, but again, you question the competition. And Forever Young placed third in the Kentucky Derby. That's the best we've ever seen a horse coming from the Japan Road. I'm not from the state of Missouri, but, show me that these Japan horses can do it before I'm going to get real intense betting a horse like this, but certainly a horse that you have to use underneath in your gimmicks.
Thanks for the reminder. I clobbered Forever Young in that Derby. So happy. Let's take the Santa Anita Derby winner here, Bobby Newman. Mike Smith for Galat. Your thoughts on So Happy?
They've never run a bad race. 3 wins from 4 starts. They actually were not 100% committed to running in the Derby, despite winning the Santa Anita Derby, going away by almost 3. Seemed kind of ridiculous that the Santa Anita Derby winner drawing away wouldn't run in the Kentucky Derby, but they wanted to do what was best for the horse and see if maybe this was the best spot for him. They've decided to try the Derby. I don't know how good the Santa Anita schedule has been as far as the 3-year-olds this year. Maybe not as strong as years past, but this horse has been very, very good. It's really hard to knock him, especially at a big number, 15 to 1.
Mike Smith, Mike Wilkening, you're going to bet the jockey, you're going to bet the horse?
I like Bobby. I'm not convinced that this has been the strongest sort of group of California 3-year-olds, but he's been the best of them. And he's got a running style and a sort of endurance factor. He's shown he can get progressively longer distances, hasn't run a bad race. Respect him, not for me in this Derby, but if folks like him, I'd have no problem. And again, blame on the bottom side too. You would figure he'll be in the frame, I think, at the quarter pole, and I think from there it's kind of we'll see what happens.
Superfecta play for you, Jeff? Are you going to put him any higher than that?
He'll be one of them that'll come running late. Mike Smith's 29th Derby mount. That's amazing to think he's found a ride 29 different years in the Derby. The Santa Anita Derby, I watched that race multiple times over and over again. It was the slowest Santa Anita Derby since 2019 in Roadster. So, again, I agree. The California 3-year-old crop, not the best. Potente went out, set a fairly rapid pace in that, and that race kind of fell apart, and So Happy kind of came rolling home to pick up the pieces. So, again, not convinced that So Happy is going to win this race, but I think you have to protect yourself and play underneath in your gimmicks and your tries and your supers.
The Puma has got a lot of fans out there, Bobby Newman. Are you one?
Not really one of the Puma. I think he's as tough as it gets, and I respect him, and he's never fired a bad race. The thing I don't love about the Puma is that 3 of his 4 starts, he has regressed from the top of the stretch to the wire. Last time out, he had the lead in the Florida Derby, got nipped by Commandment. First start of his career, he had the lead at the top of the stretch. Chief Wallabe ran right on by. And in the Sam Davis, he went from 2 lengths back to 6 lengths back, albeit against Renegade. So even though he never fires a bad shot, he's now going an extra distance, which I'm not really sure he wants the extra distance. I respect him at 10-1. I just don't love him in this spot.
Do you like him, Mike?
I will use him underneath, and I think he's got a puncher's chance. Loved that in the Tampa Derby, again, kind of a pokey 24-1 out of the gate, accelerated to 47-4, kind of made a sustained run. He's able to do that. He's got a little bit of acceleration. I think that it's a real key thing to be able to do in this race. When the hole's open, you've got to hit him. I think he's able to do that. But yeah, I do wonder if this final furlong for him will be a little bit too much, but you'd love to own him. He's a heck of a horse. And I think, to me, he's certainly among the top 5 or 6 contenders in this race.
Is he for you, Jeff?
Absolutely. He's one of my top 2 or 3 contenders. I really like the Puma here. You get Javier Castellano back on board. The only bad race, 2 back in the Kentucky Derby, Edwin Gonzalez was riding him in that race, and I didn't think Edwin gave him the best steer in the world and kind of ran him into a stop sign as they were coming to the top of the stretch and kind of lost a lot of momentum in that race. That was a race I really thought he had a nice shot. The Florida Derby, when he was up against Commandment came rolling home. He had held off Chief Wallabe fairly comfortably in that race. Chief Wallabe wasn't getting to the Puma in that race. The Puma's been working great at Churchill. Commandment just got up to win by a nose in that Florida Derby, so I think the Puma really has a real shot here. It's been since 2018 in Justify. I threw out the 2019 Derby since it was run in September. But it's been since 2018 when Justify won his lead-up race to the Kentucky Derby. None of the Kentucky Derby winners since that race have won their lead-up to the Derby. So Puma finishing second at the Florida Derby, a path that's been very popular to the winner's circle at Churchill, kind of follows the pattern I like to see.
Wonder Dean is next, Bobby Newman. This is a horse from Dubai. I give him no shot. Do you?
I think he has better than no shot in this race because I think he ran very well in the UAE Derby. He tracked down a horse in Sixspeed, who's also in the Kentucky Derby, and Sixspeed had a lonely lead that day, and Wonder Dean easily tracked him down and won going away, and those two were way ahead of everyone else. So I think Sixspeed actually ran his race, and Wonder Dean was still able to track him down. He obviously has some punch. I don't think the distance is going to be a problem for him. He's a horse that I think I would use underneath in tickets.
All right, Mike.
I like this horse a lot.
You do?
I like him a lot.
All right.
I think his last 2 races have been really sneaky good. Well, the UAE Derby, I think, again, as Bobby noted, really went and got Sixspeed, was really the only one that went and got him, was wide. Wide trips have been an issue for him. That's one issue. But to me, the real race to look at, you go 2 back to his performance in Saudi Arabia. He was probably 8, 9, 10 wide. It was a one turn mile race. I don't know what happened, but he was like 9 wide, and he came and really punched in a pretty good run. He finished 4th. Didn't quite sustain it, but I mean, he ran almost a mile and an eighth, I think, when it was all said and done. Loved how game he was there. I think he's got a little bit of acceleration. That last work, it looks terrible on paper, but it was a 23 second final quarter. I think he's a sit accelerate type, and he's somebody that can come out of the pack and go chase and get you. He's shown he can do that again with Sixspeed. I like him a lot. I'm going to be using him on everything. And if he wins, I will have it.
Well, now I might have to reconfigure. I tell you what you were talking about there, the acceleration. I saw that in the workout because he looked like he was going really slow, and then the exercise rider just kind of nudged him a little bit. And he did accelerate. I think Rosie and Profit pointed that out at twinspires.com. Holdy, are you on Wonder Dean?
Well, I think Mike might have been peeking at my notes because what I wrote right away the first time I saw Wonder Dean was sneaky good. So yeah, certainly caused a chuckle there. Yeah, I think this horse has a lot of ability. I think he's a must used underneath if you're spreading underneath in your tries and supers. Went back and I was watching the Dubai race, was very impressive. And like Mike said, being wide that entire trip in the Saudi Derby, this is a horse that certainly has a chance when so few do coming through the Japan Road.
All right, let's move on, gentlemen. Let's go to Incredibolt, the other Riley Mott. Riley Mott will win a Derby one year. I don't think it's this year, Bobby. How about that?
I'm going to agree. I don't like Incredibolt in this spot. I haven't liked any of the horses that use Colonial as their preps for the Kentucky Derby yet. The track seems to be really, really fast for that 2 or 3 day meet they have in Virginia. And I just don't think the horses get much out of it. And to be honest, I don't really think it was much of a field that Incredibolt beat last time out. He looked really good doing it. But that's about it. I think it's going from shallow waters to the deep end for Incredibolt. If he ran 4th or 5th, I think it'd be a good effort for him.
Passing or using, Mike?
I'm going to pass. Though again, a very nice performance here. We don't have a ton of evidence on the Colonial races thus far, but last year it wasn't a factor. And 7 weeks into this, again, it's not a negative. Changing, training changes these years. I mean, it used to be 5 weeks was a big deal back with Barber. All right, so 7 weeks isn't a huge deal anymore. But I think Bobby said it better than I could. What did he truly get out of this race? And again, he's really stepping up in class.
Yeah, I watched Barbaro's Derby earlier in the week. Man, that was something. Jeff Holdorf, your thoughts on Incredibolt?
I think it's fun to see the father-son combination. You see Bill Mott with a horse in here. You see Riley Mott with 2, his son. Certainly going to be a trainer that's going to take notice someday. I don't think it's this upcoming Saturday, but I think he's going to be a trainer that's going to be very impressive to see. His charge here for his second charge for Pin Oak Stud, Incredibolt. Really threw in a clunker in the Holy Bull back in early January, trying to look for a spot where they could try to get a little redemption. Found a soft spot in the Virginia Derby. Riley Mott thought the surface at Colonial would be similar to Churchill. And I think the surface might be a little similar, but I think the competition level is going to be completely different. And this is a horse that's going to be fairly well beaten when we see the finish line come Sunday, or Saturday rather.
Riley's dad, Bill, trains the 12 Chief Wallabe. Bobby, did you think that he encountered traffic trouble in the Florida Derby? A lot of people did. I watched it a couple of times. I don't think maybe it was as glaring as some make it out to be. When you watched it, Bobby, what did you see?
I think he was just down inside and got outmoved by horses like Commandment and the Puma as they were going down the backstretch and into the far turn. And I'm not really sure the inside part of the track was the best that day at Gulfstream. And with all of that, he was only beaten a half a length by Commandment and the Puma. He's gotten the blinkers on for the first time. Supposedly he's worked very well since the blinkers have been added. I think we're going to see Chief Wallabe's best race thus far in the Kentucky Derby. It's just a question of whether or not it's going to be good enough to win. I do think it'll be good enough to teach his son a little bit of a lesson or two and beat both of Riley's horses.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. You going to use him, Mike?
Got to, I think. I look, I think this has been, Bill Mott's shown his hand on this horse, I think, since he debuted, the way he's talked about him. And, the blinkers are an interesting move, but again, has trained great. And, just on the numbers, there's nothing not to like about what he's done. He has not run a bad race and has been right at the doorstep here. I think the Florida preps have been the best, and he's been right there. So a forward move here, which is entirely possible, and start number 4. He could have the roses. I mean, I think you've got to use him, even if you like somebody else. He's to me, one of the 4 or 5 most likely winners of this race.
Yep, I agree with you. Do you, Jeff?
I do not care for this horse as much. I agree. He hasn't thrown in a bad race. I'm going to trust Bill Mott knows better than Jeff Holdorf knows, but I don't like the adding blinkers. 25 years, horses that have been first-time blinkers at Churchill Downs, 10 times that's happened. They've never hit the board. I don't like the equipment change this close to the Derby. A good friend of mine that Ken, Tyler Ingles, a tremendous handicapper. He has a stamina formula that he puts together going back 20 years on the Derby. Any horse that has a stamina number under 15 has never won the Derby. The stamina number that he pulls up on this horse is a 13, which makes him an automatic throw out for me.
All right, let's move on. Silent Tactic. Trainer Mark Cassie came out earlier in the week and said that the Arkansas Derby might have had an excuse. He had a foot bruise. Bobby still finished second behind Renegade. What did you make of that?
Well, first of all, Mark Cassie is going to be our guest Tuesday morning at 7:36 Central Time, live from the barn area at Churchill Downs. So I'm sure we'll talk to him about that. I always think it's funny when we hear about these things after the fact. We didn't hear anything going into the race about the horse having a little bit of a foot bruise or something like that. I think it's in the book that the trainers get when they get their license. It's about this thick of excuses to give the publicity departments and anyone writing about it. Listen, I didn't think Silent Tactic had a chance of beating Renegade in the Arkansas Derby. Maybe he would have been a length and a half closer. I don't know. He certainly was very good in both the Southwest and the Rebel, but to me, he's going to have to run probably 5-6 lengths better than he's ever run to have a chance in this race.
Never been worse than second, Mike Wilkening. What about your thoughts on Silent Tactic?
Hard Trier, probably the best of the Arkansas horses other than Renegade, coming in and, basically dominating that crop. I think all things considered, he's one for the very deep exotics. If you're going to spread, that's as far as I would go. And a really nice, I think, and he's, again, somebody that's probably going to go on. And if he comes out of this in one piece, is going to be somebody that's going to go on and probably be heard from in some of the, kind of other division races as a 3-year-old, because he's a really neat horse, all things considered.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think he's going to make owner John Oxley a lot of money going forward. I think he's in a little deep here. By the way, John Oxley, the owner of this horse, this is the 25th anniversary of his Kentucky Derby when he won on Monarchos back in 2001. That's kind of a fun story, but yeah, I think this is going to be one of the 6 or 8 closers trying to close ground in a hurry at the end of this race and trying to find the path. I don't think this horse quite has the ability to get to where he needs to be. There's other deep closers or closers in this race that I'm going to take a shot with. Silent Tactic, again, I questioned earlier the Arkansas path to the Derby being maybe not quite as strong as it's been in other years. So I'll use Silent Tactic on the bottom of my supers and my tries, just because I want to make sure I'm covered just in case this is the horse that comes running. But I don't think he's quite of the caliber of some of the other closers in this race.
Monarchos, was he the second horse to break the Secretariat, obviously? Didn't Monarchos break 2 minutes? Mike, I also lunch on this, didn't he, Mike?
It was, the great Tom Durkin call. He nailed it right at the end. He said he was as fast as Secretariat. So yeah, I believe he was. Yeah.
2001. Let's move on. Let's go to Potente is up next. The other Baffert in here, the runner-up in the Santa Anita Derby, Bobby.
Yeah, his record says that he obviously has a chance. He's 2 wins and a second from 3 career starts, but I'm kind of going back to what Mike and I were saying earlier. I'm just not sure what the California path is this year with these horses. This doesn't look like your normal Bob Baffert, run him off the screen type of a horse. He's never run a bad race. I'm not going to use him, though.
Are you, Mike?
I'm not going to use them either. Again, I thought that the San Felipe was a really nice effort, but, basically he nailed a 67-1 shot. That still hurts. I had Robust in that race. That was no fun. And again, to talk about the California horses, so happy was third in that San Felipe. This is a group that's beat each other up. I do think he's the better of the Baffert horses. He's probably got a little bit of a room to improve, but you just don't see that sort of brilliance that you see out of the best Bafferts. That he's not for me in this race.
Potente, by the looks of things, you're going to get a run for your money, Holdy. He should be on or near the lead, somewhere in that first tier, I would think.
Well, and I think that's the exact reason that you're seeing Litmus test. Baffert's going to send Litmus test along with the other front runners, going to try to set something up. I'm not sure that Potente has that turn of foot, but I don't think Potente is going to be near as far back as a lot of the deep closers. Somebody thought an awful lot of this horse as a $2.4 million purchase for Speedway Stables. Not quite getting all their money back on that horse yet, but I said, I thought the Santa Anita Derby effort was a little better than what it kind of shows on paper. Potente kind of had his eyeballs run out there for about the first 3/4 of a mile in that race, and So Happy came rolling home to kind of pick up the pieces after Potente was definitely softened up. So I thought the Santa Anita Derby effort wasn't bad. I think it wasn't the tactic that you want to use with Potente. I'll be interested to see how far Juan Hernandez is able to get this horse to set off the pace. And if he can come with his best run, a lot of times, you see these Kentucky Derby horses, fire their very best race. And as I said earlier, you don't see a lot of horses winning their prep. Again, I'm with everyone else on the knock on the California 3-year-olds this year, and certainly not being their best. But I just got a sneaky suspicion we haven't seen the best of Potente yet, and there's a chance we might see it on Saturday, so I'm definitely going to use him underneath.
On February the 7th, Sam Davis Day at Tampa Bay, I watched a maiden race. I immediately opened up my Equibase virtual stable and typed in emerging market. And in the comments I put, is it too late for the Derby? Well, here he is. He's 2 for 2. He won the Louisiana Derby, Bobby. I love this horse, Bobby Newman.
Okay. I can certainly see both sides on this horse. The plus is that he's 2 for 2. He's looked very good. He's obviously improving, and he's Chad Brown and he's Flavien Prat, 2 of the best in the business. The negative would be, well, you can say, all right, he barely won a maiden race at Tampa, and he barely beat a horse who barely won the Sunland Derby in his next start. So what does it mean? I don't know. I know he has a lot of talent. He's a little horse, going to be much smaller than about any other horse in this field, but his speed figures are right there. I think he has a chance. I don't know if I like him to win, but he's certainly a horse I would love to own.
Yeah, me too. You going to use him, Mike?
Yes, I like him a lot. I think he's got a big chance. I think Louisiana Derby, his effort was one of the best efforts we've seen this season when you look from a pace perspective. Basically just shade under 23 seconds to that first quarter for him. Ran hard throughout, ran down a loose on the lead Pavlovian. Now, granted, I think again, Pavlovian, I think is in this field and is probably a little bit overmatched, but second start all time. They've always believed in this horse from what Chad Brown has said. It was a little late to get him here for just little things that came up. They really like him, and I can see why. And again, on the numbers and everything else, I think he's got the running style. He's shown he can, again, sort of attend that hot pace. He's got a real chance here. Again, the only caveat is, again, third career start. This is a lot to ask, but I think he's really talented.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of his physical stature, so that doesn't get me real excited, but I do believe he has talent. Do you, Jeff?
He definitely has a lot of talent. I think I'm going to love this horse in the Travers. Unfortunately, that's not this week. I think you're going to see this horse really come on at the end of the year as the horse gets some experience, and the horse has just a ton of heart. That was a tremendous stretch run at the fairgrounds in the Louisiana Derby. Pavlovian ran his eyeballs out, and Emerging Market was able to prevail by about a head, half a head, what have you. It was a really fun race. What I was surprised was that the time didn't come out that great, and I thought we'd see better buyers and Equibase numbers on that race than what we did. But I really like this horse. I just think third career race going into a race like this might be too much too soon for Emerging Market. But I certainly think you have to protect yourself underneath in your exotics and I think this horse is going to be a great horse if you watch the 3-year-old develop later in the season. See this horse probably at Saratoga come with Chad Brown later in the season.
Edwin Maldonado rides Pavlovian. I love Maldonado on a speed horse. I believe he's going to be one of the speed factors in here, Bobby. I don't know if he's going to get the distance or not. Pavlovian, is he a user or pass for you?
He's a pass for me. He's obviously a good story. He's improving at the right time. But I just don't think he's talented enough to be a win threat in the Derby.
Mike?
Agree. but what's going to be really interesting here is, it's clear that Litmus Test wants to go, and whether he's going to try to set it up for the other Baffert is open to interpretation. But Pavlovian, his last 2 starts, they figured out what he wants to do. And it's been Edwin Maldonado, like we've talked about, one of the great speed riders in America. That, he knows one way, and it's to the front. And his Louisiana Derby was really brave. And it's going to be very interesting to me to see where this horse is. You might get a thrill with him if you bet him, in the sense that it's entirely possible he's leading in between calls or at the top of the stretch, because if Litmus Test goes and this one sits off, I don't think Pavlovian is going to quit at the quarter mile pole. He's going to grind on, I think, a bit. He'll give you a thrill. It'll be similar to the Safi Joseph horse last year, I think, in the Aquos in a lot of ways. It would not surprise me if he's leading here with all of the money with about 25 seconds left in this.
Are you going to bet him, Jeff?
He's the most heavily he's the most heavily raced horse coming into this Kentucky Derby. This is his 11th race already in his career. I loved that Louisiana Derby race. Yeah, this horse early in his career was kind of a closer to a deep closer style, and getting Edwin Maldonado on, the speed jock that he is, went straight to the front, and it was a really impressive. I loved the Louisiana Derby race. I'm afraid, though, the stamina numbers that I grind out on him just show that he should not be able to hold together for 1.25 miles. So I'm afraid he's going to be speed and fade. As much as I love the Louisiana Derby race, I am not going to play him in the Kentucky Derby.
Sixspeed, Bobby, can he go that far? I guess that's the question. He figures to be a speed factor as well, as I see it.
No, I think he's a miler at best, and I think he'll be done before they get to the quarter pole.
Yeah. Speed and fold for you, Mike?
If he can outbreak Litmus Test, and if he can beat Pavlovian and kind of get into stride, he might have a chance to sort of lead these guys for about 1 mile. I do think it's probably a little bit too far for him. Nice story, great connections, but another horse, Bobby, a little bit on the small side when you see him. So again, hopefully he's someone that kind of comes back and has a full season. He might be a heck of a 7 furlong mile horse too, as well. And there's a bunch of those in the 3-year-old class. I think it's going to be a great year for this crop overall when you kind of zoom out.
Too far for him, Jeff?
Definitely. I'm spot on with what Bobby said. Miles seems to kind of be as far as this horse wants to go. It's kind of fun that Sixspeed did pick up Brian Hernandez Jr., who won the Derby on 2024 on Mystic Dan. So kind of fun to see Brian Hernandez get another Derby mount. But yeah, I'm afraid you're only going to enjoy this horse for about the first 3 quarters of the race, and then he'll be backing out of it.
Bobby, I don't know what to make of the Bluegrass with further ado. He absolutely freaked that day. Is he that good, does the Keeneland form, which he absolutely loves Keeneland, as we've seen. What's your thoughts on the Bluegrass winner?
Oh, if he runs like he did in the Bluegrass, he's probably going to win the Kentucky Derby. I generally think that horses who run that big tend to regress a little bit in their next start, and I'm not sure if he's as good away from Keeneland as he is at Keeneland. I don't know what to make of him either. He was great in the Bluegrass, but in the race before, where supposedly he had been working well and was ready to run in the Tampa Bay Derby, he had a much better trip than did the Puma or third place finisher Canaletto. He couldn't hold off the Puma that day, and he barely held off Canaletto for second that afternoon. So I don't know what we're going to get from him on Derby day. I do know this. He has the speed figures to win. I generally try to pick horses to win the Derby who I think are going to run better than they did in their previous start. I don't think Further Ado will run better than he did last time out.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do. How about for you, Mike?
I love the fact that Further Ado is someone that's been able to run kind of sitting right near the lead, good pace figs. I like that because I do think he's someone that the hot early Derby pace, I think he'll be able to handle that theoretically. Now, I'm going to contradict that and say when you really look at kind of where he's been in his races and how fast he's been sort of to that first quarter mile or thereabouts, it's entirely possible he's a little further back than he's been. Now, he's shown he can come and get horses, but this is not the bluegrass where I think he's going to be slingshotting around and sort of running away from folks. He might have to do a little bit more work to kind of keep position and then go get the horses in front. I think he's one I use defensively. It wouldn't surprise me if he won. I just don't think he's going to get quite the race shape he's going to want. I think he's going to be wider than you would like to see as well, too.
You're going to use him, Jeff?
I think you have to use him, but kind of ducktailing off what Bobby said, I certainly like to see a horse, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't had a horse win his Derby prep race leading into the Derby since Justify in 2018. And further ado, certainly looked like he fired his best bullet in that Toyota Bluegrass. Another little, I'm a kind of a numbers nerd from the word go. And firing 106 Beyer, we've never had a horse that in his lead up to the Derby has fired 105 Beyer or better and won the Derby. So again, firing your best shot the race before the Derby usually doesn't tend for the best results come Derby time, but I think you have to protect yourself and use this horse, because if for some reason further ado races back to that Toyota Bluegrass form at Keeneland, and he has won at Churchill. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes last November at Churchill Downs, so the horse has won here. So watch out. Watch out if that horse runs back to the Toyota Bluegrass form. I think you have to use further ado in the race.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's going to be right there, right 5-6 to 1 that range. Let's go to Golden Tempo. I like to watch horses work, and I watched Golden Tempo's work at Keeneland on Friday. I was blown away how good he looked. Golden Tempo finished behind Emerging Market, who I said earlier that I really like. Golden Tempo, to me, I'm going to use this horse, Bobby. How about you?
Yeah, I think you have to use him, especially at the number. He looks like the distance will be his friend. He's working well. He's bred to handle distance, being by Curlin out of a Bernardini mare. He's got one of the top riders in the country in Jose Ortiz for an underrated up-and-coming trainer in Cherie DeVoe, who, by the way, will also be on one of our shows a little bit later this next week. Golden Tempo, the faster they go early on, the better chance he has. He just needs to avoid traffic.
You like him, Mike?
I do. He's in my top 5. And I'll probably have a small win ticket on him. I'm someone that has no problem betting multiple horses in the Derby. So be it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think a pace collapse would help him quite a bit, but I think the extra half furlong is going to be really to his favor. And these connections, they don't show up to run to get a box in the Derby. The Phipps and St. Elias and DeVoe. I mean, that she's as straightforward a trainer as there is. She the horse takes them there, and so I tend to think that you again looking at these last few works, the horse seems to be doing very well. Yeah, 30 to 1. I think he's got a real chance to get a check here at the least.
Absolutely. Do you like him, Jeff?
Yeah, horse that can run all day. Sire side, you have Curlin, Smart Strike. If there is a little moisture in the track, you have Bernardini on the dam side. Cherie DeVoe, definitely one of my very favorite trainers in the nation. She's fantastic. Jose Ortiz, 11th Derby. He knows what he's doing. Like you said, the connections are here to win. They're going to do the very best they can. Workouts leading up to the Derby. Been working out at Keeneland. Looked fantastic. I liked the Louisiana Derby race. That horse was coming late. Get that horse a little extra distance in that Louisiana Derby, and that Golden Tempo might have been the winner of the Louisiana Derby. That horse was closing towards the end. Finished third in the Risen Star behind Paladin and Chip Honcho. This horse has seen a lot of quality in the lead up to the Derby, and again, you find the pace breakdown in this Kentucky Derby, which you're sure looking at. This could be a very hot early pace if we get 5 or 6 horses going out, and you find a 44, 45 to the half in this Derby. This could set up real well. This will be one of the closers we like, and I think this is one of the quality closers in Golden Tempo, and I think this horse is going to be ready come Saturday.
I'm with you. This could be a rich strike type of stretch run for Golden Tempo, navigating his way through the field. We shall see. Full effort. This is the other Cox of the 3 Cox horses in the race. Seemingly, this is the one that's kind of getting a little bit overlooked. Coming from Turfway Park, where he won the Jim Beam Stakes. Bobby, I kind of like him. How about you?
Think I'm going to use him at the price. I don't think his numbers on that synthetic track are good enough to be a contender in this race, but he kind of looks like he's working better on dirt than he was running on synth. And at the number of 20-1, I think he's another one that could benefit from a fast pace. I don't know if I love him to win, but I think I'd have to use him underneath.
Post position bother you, Mike? Do you have him on any tickets?
I'd have them sort of on deep tickets,
Yeah.
you know, particularly for the try and super. You know, the curious thing about him, and it's the curious thing about some Kentucky 3-year-olds or right now, I mean, going back to when they're 2, is that this rich Kentucky Downs program that we have, and the fact that Ellis is one of the first circuits that really start to kind of getting 2-year-olds on the grass. It's a place for horses to go long. We see trainers all the time that maybe aren't pointing for grass, that just say, we need a race for a horse. Let's get them stretched out. He's obviously one that, you know, has run quite well on the grass. And, you know, that's you go back to September 10th, that's 170,000 maiden purse in Kentucky Downs. That's pretty good. So we think we've got a grass horse, then you just keep him there. I mean, he's got such a huge barn, Cox, that, you know, I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's entirely possible he could be a dirt horse. We don't know. So I think at the price, the way he's been working, certainly I'd have no problem with anybody using him. I'd like to kind of see it, but you know, he'll certainly drop back, save ground, and make that one run.
Bottom of your tickets, Jeff?
I certainly like him, yes. Interesting to see if the turf synthetic form can translate to dirt, but he fired a bullet on the 17th of April at Churchill, says, yeah, he's working really well on the dirt. Again, you got St. Elias and the ownership connections. Certainly they're there to win. A lot of times this synthetic form coming out of the Jeff Ruby has played very well over the years at Churchill and the Kentucky Derby. That's where Rich Strike came from, winning the Jeff Ruby back in 22. Two Phils, who finished second in the Derby in 23, also was a Jeff Ruby winner. Final Gambit finished fourth in the Derby last year. He came out of the Jeff Ruby also, so we're seeing a lot of form coming off the synthetic at Turfway out of the Jeff Ruby that's translated very well into this Derby at Churchill. So the synthetic to dirt angle has worked very well. So I wouldn't be afraid coming out of the 20 hole. I mean, it's a horse that's going to be running late, so he's not going to be afraid to break slow, get to the rail, and come with his big run late. But as I've said a couple of times before, there's going to be a lot of them coming with that big run late, and who's going to find the right path to get there?
Rich Strike, the all button was my friend that day, as I had a couple of exacta tickets and I'd never had Rich Strike in a million years if I didn't hit ALL. Who's going to win the Kentucky Derby, Bobby Newman? Give me your top.
Renegade is the best horse, but I will not bet a horse breaking from the rail. I learned my lesson with looking at Lucky several years ago. So even though I think he's the best horse, I'm going to pick Chief Wallabe. I think he'll run a better race on Saturday than he has thus far in his career, and I think the blinkers will help him. Chief Wallabe for me to give Mott 2 in a row.
All right. How about you, Mike?
Wonder Dean for me.
Wow.
I think the curse is broken. You know, and I think, to me, love the running style. This is a deep field, though, this year, I would say, on balance. I get the Courage and Nice Guy Award, too, for making the case for about 14 horses in this panel by saying, oh, he's a great horse, too. Well, I got to settle on one of them. Wonder Dean is my horse.
Yeah, that's the way it is with the Derbies. You said earlier, you bet I bet this race differently than I'll bet another race all year long.
Yep.
Go deeper and use others. I know that I'm betting against myself, but sometimes it pays off. All right, Jeff Holdorf, there's a 30-1. Chief Wallaby, what was his board? He's 8-1, so decent price there too. Holdy, your thoughts? Who you bet?
I'm going to go just a touch higher in the price market. I'm going to go to the 2023 connections. I'm going with the Puma. I think the Puma hasn't seen his best race yet. His workouts at Churchill have just looked fantastic. He's prancing around that Churchill track with his neck bowed. Looks like he's ready to go. Gustavo Delgado, Javier Castellano, same connections as the Mage just a couple of years ago. I'm heading right back there. I think the Puma's still sitting on his best race to date. Can he get the distance? That's the question mark. I'm going to say that he can here in this Kentucky Derby of 2026.
All right, I'm going to take Emerging Market, the 15 horse at 15-1 in the morning line. Anybody ever thought of the Oaks? Anybody got an Oaks horse yet? It's tough.
And if you have a good idea in that race, and you're right, you're going to make a lot of money because that is a wide open edition of the Oaks.
Yeah, I kind of
I agree. If you can narrow it down, good luck.
I like the California horse meaning a little bit. I'm just based on her workout as well. I thought she looked great back early in the week. Bobby Newland, one more time. You're going to be on the backside of Churchill Downs this week. When will you be on Sirius and on the internet? How can we find you and more importantly, listen to you, Bobby?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, live on the backstretch at Churchill Downs from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time with former trainer Jude Feld. We'll be on Sirius 161, XM 206, or you can listen live right on the net at horseracingradio.net. And I can tell you a list already of characters that we have lined up for the days. We've got Larry Colmus, jockeys Jaime Torres, John Velasquez, Christian Torres. I'm working on getting Jose Ortiz onto the show. Cherie DeVoe, Chad Brown are going to be on. So is Doug O'Neill. So is Mark Cassie. Byron King from the Blood Horse will be there. Aaron Wellman, who's the founder and president of Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners, will be on. We've got, I think, 18 segments in 3 days, and about 14 of them are already filled.
Nice. As a radio guy, I love when that comes together like that. Mike Wilkening covered the NFL for a long time, Pro Football Weekly, Pro Football Talk, now loves to bet the horses and talk to horses. Grateful for you, Mike, to join us. I want to do this again as we get to the festival in the middle of July, maybe put this same panel back together if everybody's good. And I know where I'll find you, Jeff Holdorf, at your table at Prairie Meadows, watching the races nice in and night out. Live racing starts on Saturday. So the Derby post time is just before 6 o'clock. Prairie Meadows are going to run a race, at least one race, at 5 o'clock, and then pick up after. And then the following weekend, we kind of ease our way into it, don't we, Bobby? We race Friday and Saturday, and then come back with our 4-day weekend, I guess, number 3. Gentlemen, thanks for doing this for us. Enjoy the Derby, whoever's betting it, however you're betting it. Best of luck to everybody out there. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby, and stick around for live racing at Prairie Meadows coming up on Saturday. Thank you, gentlemen, and best of luck to everybody.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right.